Hello my viewers and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another video where we will be uncovering a hidden chapter in the history of the transatlantic slave trade. For centuries, the dominant narrative has been that enslaved Africans were illiterate and devoid of language. But what if that's not the whole story? Now in this video, we will be exploring the fascinating claim that many enslaved Africans actually spoke Hebrew, an ancient language with roots in the Middle East. In the video, brothers expose the language that slaves spoke, from messages scrawled in Hebrew on church walls to the deliberate omission of our linguistic heritage. We are examining the evidence that suggests our ancestors were far more linguistically sophisticated than we've been led to believe. So with that said, join me as we take a look into the forgotten history of the African diaspora and uncover the truth about the languages they spoke, the messages left behind, and the stories that have been hidden from us for far too long. With that said, check out these videos. I will be right back.
They always say, like, yeah, before we came to America, when we came to America, the slaves couldn't read or write. Well, yeah, duh, we couldn't read or write English because we spoke Hebrew. Like, there's evidence in certain churches within the South that as they had slaves in the churches, they were literally writing messages and notes to each other in Hebrew, right? So of course we couldn't read or write. We couldn't read or write English. You ever notice how like they never say what language we spoke when they brought the slaves over? They make it seem like as if like we had literally no language, you know, when they brought us over. There's no, they never put that out. They never say which language we spoke. That's because we spoke Hebrew. So I have a video and it's talking about like how YT people and their scholars and, you know, fake historians, how they always have told us that hey, well, the slaves couldn't read or write. Well, yeah, we couldn't read or write English, but they never teach or they never tell us, even though they're keen on telling us everything else, right? Including who we are as Black Americans, the real children of Israel. They're very keen on that, but they've never, for some reason, they didn't want to tell us what language we spoke, right? When we were brought over on ships, right? And what language we were speaking when we were already here. For those people who want to be like, well, we were already here. I already know that. I already know that. We were scattered, right? But my father says we were brought over on ships. That also happened as well. Two things can be true at the same time. But YT people and they're keen on telling us everything else, but not which language we spoke, right? And you got their agents who come and say, well, we spoke many different African languages. Right, because they got to continue to keep the ones who are asleep, right? Even though, like, they're not going to change our mind about who we know we are as the real children of Israel because our God is telling us this. But, you know, it's their job to keep those who are asleep away from this truth and have our people still thinking we're African when we're not. Africans are not even Africans. You can't find the word African in the Bible. So Africa is named after a YT Roman guy. Scipio Africanus. That's not us. The name of some YT guy is not the name of a race, the identity and ethnicity of a people. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know you people like to say, you know, this is why they say the YT man is God. I mean, this is why they say YT Jesus is God, because really what they're telling you is that the YT man is God. That's what that's all about. You ask these Christians, well, is Jesus God? Well, of course he is. So they just, all they're doing is telling you is that, you know, their YT, Jesus is God, right? You know what I'm saying? Because they don't really like the Father, right? Because they know that the Father chose Black people. So they're bitter about that. They're bitter and, resentful about that. But I always say, if we spoke, and I quote, many different African languages from different tribes, they wouldn't have hidden it from us because they want us thinking we are African. They hid it from us because they know it was Hebrew writing all inscribed over them ships that aren't still around today. There's Hebrew writing all over in the South in them churches when when they had the slaves in them churches, right? I think it's First Baptist Church in Georgia. You go there today, there's Hebrew writing in the pulpits and on the back of the chairs and things like that, right? Because they try to hide our identity, that we're actually the real Jews, children of Israel from the tribe of Judah, the same tribe as Jesus Christ. Right. So you got their YT agents and Gentiles coming. Oh, you guys, pretending to be black people. Oh, yeah. No, you telling us again what we spoke. They tell us they tell us what race we are. I mean, they're the only people on earth who tell other people who they are. I mean, I think I'm more adept at telling you who I am, but that I enter under overstand. That's what they do. And now they're also telling people what language, what language they spoke, because that's just what they do. Right? Don't fall for the sorcerers and the magicians' tricks. We are God's actual bloodline, not through some fake Judean religion converts. No, we are actually the bloodline descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And don't let nobody tell you differently, because they just don't want you to know you're chosen above God's people. You're chosen by the Most High God above all people. They don't want you to know that it's all about you. But think about it. Think about it, brother, man. Think about it, sister girl. Why do you think they hate you so much? You think they just hate you for skin color? Well, that's factually incorrect, because you have some people who are darker. You have some East Indians, right, who are Ishmaelites, who are darker than black people. You have some Africans, because, the good majority of Africans are, Hamites, right? And then you have you have Shemites in Africa as well. So you have Africans who are Shemites as well, but you have some Africans who are darker than black people, and than black Americans, but they don't get treated like black Americans. It's all about, they don't get treated as bad as black Americans. That's because it's all about bloodline. It has nothing to do with color per se. Even though, and what I mean by that, even though everybody in the Bible is black, except for the Edomites, you know what I mean? But even the past Afro Asians, they were all black. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they just don't want you to know you're the chosen. They want you to believe that their fake-ish people are the chosen. And they're prideful. They'll tell you. They got all these shows and movies called The Chosen, right? They got all these shows called Moses with white people. So they'll tell you they're the chosen. They have no quarrel. They have no quarrels or qualms with that. They only have an issue with the word chosen when black people say we're the chosen. Meanwhile, they go around the whole world telling everybody they're the chosen with their Constantine, religion that, they don't even like Jesus, but these are the same people that still give you, right, a letter gang, effeminate Caesar Borgia, Pope Alexander VI's homo letter gang, INCEST, with his own sister image. Leonardo da Vinci's letter gang lover. That's what they'll give you is their Jesus, their Messiah, their YT man, their God, the image of the beast.
Now, the video sheds light on a long-hidden aspect of the transatlantic slave trade, challenging the prevailing narrative that enslaved Africans were uneducated and lacked a language. Now, the revelation that many slaves spoke Hebrew, an ancient language with roots in the Middle East, is a significant discovery that rewrites the history of the African diaspora. The fact that slaves used Hebrew to communicate in secret, leaving messages and notes in churches and other hidden spaces, speaks to their resilience, resourcefulness, and determination to preserve their cultural identity. Now, this linguistic heritage has been deliberately erased from the historical record, perpetuating a false narrative of African inferiority. Now, the video raises important questions about the intentional separation of African languages and cultures during the slave trade and colonization. Why have these languages been hidden from us? What other secrets have been kept from us? Now, by uncovering the truth about our linguistic heritage, we can begin to reclaim our history, challenge dominant narratives, and celebrate the richness and diversity of African cultures. This video is a powerful reminder of the importance of uncovering and honoring the past and the need for continued exploration and discovery. Now, as I was carrying out my research, I did a lot of research on this topic, and I just discovered that there's scarcity of information supporting this claim. Despite extensive research, I couldn't uncover any credible sources of historical evidence to back up this assertion, and it's not surprising. It's not to say that the transatlantic slave trade and the experiences of enslaved people are well documented and easily accessible. Far from it. However, the specific claim that Hebrew was a language spoken by enslaved Africans remains elusive. What I did find, however, were a few individuals who echoed the sentiment expressed by the brother in the videos. Now, they shared similar beliefs and experiences, hinting at a hidden history that has been intentionally suppressed. It's possible that these voices are mere whispers of a larger untold story. Now, one can't help but wonder if the lack of information is, in fact, a result of deliberate erasure. Has the dominant narrative of African inferiority and linguistic primitiveness been so deeply ingrained that alternative perspectives have been systematically silenced? The fact that some people are now speaking out and sharing their knowledge suggests that there may be more to this story than we are led to believe. The only thing I found on this topic are notes on the origins and evolution of African American language. Now, it says the North American language contact situation into which Africans were plumated was initiated in the 15th century and continued at least until the formal abolition of the transatlantic slave trade in 1807. Now, during the establishment and entrenchment of the profoundly oppressive system of lifelong chattel slavery dominated the colonial era of African American cultural expression. Having arrived from coastal regions covering West, Central, and even East Africa, the Africans in America created new ways to communicate based on the old ways back home in the motherland. They came from different places. They have been the literate and illiterate, peasant and artisan, bureaucrats and soldiers, royalty and subjects, aristocrats and commoners, skilled and unskilled. Their back-breaking labor and know-how were at the foundation of the development of the new Americas. Now, wherever conditions afforded, African diasporans formed distinctive cultural complexes via their social networks and communities. Through these distinctive language and communicative practices emerged. Now, some of the most important sites for the development of the African diaspora cultural complexes were plantations and maroon settlements, especially the mountainous, forested, or swampy regions of South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. Now, according to this article, it says the language of African descendants in the Americas began shifting first from an African polyglot status in the first generations of arrival to a period of bilingualism between a pidgin and each person's African mother tongue. Then subsequent generations incorporated, elaborated, and restructured features into the pidgin, forming deep and more stable regional creoles. Now, a creole is a pidgin or jargon that has become the native language of an entire speech community, often as a result of slavery or other population displacements. A pidgin becomes a creole as eventually people are born who use that language as their first language. Now, creole languages combine the language spoken by those in power or superstrate language and the substrate language or the language spoken by those subordinated in a cross-cultural contact. In the case of enslaved Africans coming into contact with Europeans in African and subsequently in the Americas, the European languages became the substrate language, contributing most of the vocabulary to the Creole languages that evolved, and the African languages became the substrate languages. Now, these Creoles were characterized mostly by mixture of English-Irish vocabulary and Niger-Congo phonology and syntax. They persisted throughout the centuries of enslavement. All the while, of course, a smaller number of African descendants would have frequent access to non-African speakers, which afforded them opportunities to learn other languages. Now, this is not only true for those more frequently in contact with prestige dialects of English, but also those affiliating with Native Americans. Additionally, the continuous arrival of continent-born Africans right up until the Civil War reinforced the persistence of African languages spoken, as well as the inclusion of African words in the lexicon of the evolving Creole that came to be called Black English and later African American English and Ebonics. We have finally come to the end of the video, but if you have information on what a brother was talking about in his video, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below and let's educate each other. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.